I'm Greg. I'm the Introverted Networker. And if being a better networker is something that you want to do in the new year, then I've got some suggestions to help you make that resolution into a reality. We all start off the year with New Year's resolutions, and most of us end up letting those go and moving on and just kind of going back to what we were doing before by about the second or third week of February. Pretty much 9 out of 10 people by the middle of February have broken their New Year's resolution. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we all start off with high hopes of the new year. We all think about the person we want to become, and we make some resolution that we're going to do something to make us that new person. And I think one of the things that happens is a lot of us have these grand ideas again about who's the person that we want to become, but we don't really have a good plan for how to put that resolution into action. And, some people will say, I want to join the gym. I want to work out more. And so they start working out. And then after a few weeks, they just go back to what they were doing before. Somebody says, I want to change my diet. I want to lose some weight. So they start doing it, but they don't really stick with it. And then they're back to who they were in December of the previous year. Again, nothing wrong with that. I just think most people start off with sort of these aspirations, and people will tell me, hey, I want to really work on my networking this year. Can you help me out? Can you give me some advice? And then the place I always start with this is whenever you're thinking about this resolution, right? This isn't just I'm going to do one thing. And maybe it is. Maybe someone's like, I want to run a 5K this year, which is great. It's one goal. You work up towards it. You have a race on the calendar and you do that race, or you don't. But I think most of us create resolutions to become a new person. And so whenever you're doing that, what is the reason why you want to become that new person? So if somebody says to me, I want to become a better networker, my first question is why? Okay. And this is like very basic Simon Sinek stuff. What's your why? Why do you want to become a better networker? Is it you want to become a better networker to find a new job? Is it you want to become a better networker to grow your business? Is it you want to become a better networker just because you want to meet interesting new people and develop relationships and have people you can talk to in order to learn things? So the first thing is figure out why you want to be a better networker. And the reason why this is so important is because when you lay that out, before you even come up with a plan of how you're going to become a better networker, you're coming up with what a lot of people refer to as a North Star, meaning you have something to guide you when you think about not doing the things you need to do to become a better networker. So if it's because I want to find a new job, as you're networking, if you start to stop doing the things you need to do or start to feel like I don't really want to network anymore, it's not something I really am interested in, you go back to that North Star, that why, and say, I'm trying to find a new job. I'm trying to grow my business. And when you do that, you say, okay, well, if I want to do those things, then that's why I'm networking. I need to do those things in order to hit that outcome. So maybe your North Star is almost like your resolution. But again, the resolution tends to be like, what's the thing I'm going to do more of in order to hit that why or achieve that why or hit that North Star? So again, I think that the biggest thing is to know why you want to do it. Again, if people are saying I want to get in shape, it's because they want to be healthier. They want to feel better. They want to feel better about themselves. They want to look better. All those things, nothing wrong with them. But again, figure out why you want to do it. So back to the networking, I think the first thing is, why do you want to do this? Another concept that can either be a North Star or a founding principle or a guiding principle is, what's a word that helps you focus on the things that you need to do in order to keep your resolution? And maybe the word becomes your North Star. So this is another takeoff on the why. But for me, obviously, I always continue to grow my network in order to find new opportunities. So it's not really a resolution so much, because I'm already networking pretty consistently. It's a habit I've developed over years. Do I do it consistently every single day? Most days. I try not to miss twice. But if I'm not doing it and I need to get back to it, I try to think of what is that concept or thing that I'm trying to achieve. And so for me, my goal with networking, or the reason why I'm networking, is trust. It comes down to trust. And all of this year and probably into years after that, I'm going to focus on the word trust. So whenever I'm not doing what I need to be doing in order to be the networker that I want to become, I'm going to go back to trust. Trust is the foundation of all relationships, including networking relationships. And we're talking about networking relationships. So trust is the foundation of those. You connect with and want to trust the people that you're connecting with so that you can help each other. And for me, trust is important in growing my new business because I have to connect with people and develop a level of trust with them so that they trust me in order to help their organizations or help them as individuals. If they trust me, they're willing to listen to what I say and put it into practice. And when they're receive the value from that, they're happy to compensate me for that. They're going to pay me because they trust what I'm saying and they trust that it's going to help them. So for me, trust has multiple meanings and multiple levels this year. It's trust and getting people to trust me, and it's also networking and growing trust with people so that I can trust them to help me out and they can trust me to help them. So trust is sort of my guiding principle or word of 2025. So whether you pick a why or you pick a North Star or you pick a word, all those things are kind of the same. But pick something that brings you back to who is the person you want to become. And again, if it's networking, and I hope it is networking, I assume because you're here, that's why you want to hear about it. So if you want to become a better networker, get down to really the why or that word, the trust that is going to help you come back and keep your resolution. Because again, I think a lot of times people start with resolutions and then they miss one day or they mess it up for a week and they think, oh, I broke it, I can't ever do it again. I mean, just start again. I mean, just because you don't do it one day or you're not perfect, and none of us are, doesn't mean you have to throw away your whole resolution. So if your resolution is something else and it's not networking, let's say it is going to the gym and you miss for a week, just start going again. Just because you miss doesn't mean you have to stop. Same thing with networking. If you're trying to reach out to people and connect and have conversations and you have a bad week, just get started again. You don't have to say, oh, I'm not a good networker, I can't networker. Just get back on it. So I think the first piece is get really clear on the why, and then understand the how. And so the how is going to have a lot of it in terms of what do you do, who do you reach out to, when do you do it, where do you do it. All those other W's kind of get wrapped up into the how we're going to do this. And the how isn't complicated. The how is what I talk about in and out, episode after episode, week after week. The how is that process. Because again, I think a lot of people create a resolution and say, I want to, again, get in shape. I want to run that 5K. So then it's going to be like, well, how are you going to do that? You're probably not just going to wake up on the day of the race and show up at the starting line and go run. No, you're going to create a plan. You're going to have a process. You're going to start off, maybe you're going to walk and you're going to speed up your walk. And then over the few weeks, you're going to start to run a little and walk a little. At least this is what I hope you do. I hope you don't just try to go run a 5K, but you're going to start to run a little more and your distance is going to get a little longer and you're going to go slow at first and then you're going to get a little bit faster, but you're going to have a process you use, a training plan, so to speak, to work up to that distance. And, whether it's a 5K or 10K, a half marathon, a full marathon, we all have those training plans when we're doing that. And maybe you don't run. Maybe it's a gym plan or maybe it's a diet plan or whatever. You're going to have a plan of steps, things that you're going to try to follow, guidelines you're going to stay within. So same thing with networking. If you've got a resolution to be a better networker, you're going to need a process. And that process is the same 5-step process that I link to in my course, that I talk about here all the time. But, hey, if this is your first time coming across this, let's talk about it. The process is you're going to start with who you already know, meaning you're going to come up with a list of people you've worked with that you know, people who are already in your network, people who maybe you haven't talked to in a few years, but you kind of lost touch with, and you'd like to get back in touch with them. And you're going to start off by figuring out who those people are. It doesn't take a lot of time. You can sit down and do it in 15 minutes and think about if you were going to start reaching out as part of your resolution, break it down. And maybe the first step in the resolution is figure out who I want to connect with. Who do I want to network with? And actually write that down. As a first easy step on your resolution, you do that on January 1st or 2nd or whenever you want to do it. Set aside 15 minutes, create a list of 5 to 10 people that you want to connect with. First step, real easy. Don't push it. Don't make it hard. Next step, reach out to those people. And it's a note, it's an email, it's a message on LinkedIn or other social media that says, hey, I've been thinking about you, wanted to get back in touch, I'm trying to make sure I connect with people in the new year. It's part of my resolution. Good reason. And I haven't talked to you in a while. I wanted to reconnect. You're going to send that off. Again, set up 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you can do. If 15 minutes doesn't work, make it 10. If 10 doesn't work, make it 5. Do the smallest possible thing that you can actually complete. Small steps in order to make sure that you do this consistently. Send out those notes and see what comes back. Now, you may have to wait a few days. You're not going to get notes right away, especially at the beginning of the year. People are busy. They're coming back to work after the holidays. They may not get back to you right away. So, but as they do, and somebody says, hey, great to hear from you, would love to get back in touch, or hey, here's what's going on with me, here's what happened in the new year, or at the end of last year, here's what I'm doing in the new year. Yeah, sounds good. You kind of do some back and forth and say, hey, I would love to jump on a phone call with you or a video call, whatever video platform you want to use. Or if you're in the same town, hey, it would be great to have coffee and catch up and see if you can have an in-person, real-life conversation. It doesn't have to necessarily be in person, but real life, voice to voice, them on a screen, them on the phone, where you can hear their voice, and set up that time to reconnect with that person. So you figured out who you want to talk to. You've sent them a note. Somebody's responded, said, hey, it would be great to talk to you. And then you're going to have that real conversation. And so you think, okay, what does that look like? I'm going to make it really easy for you. The biggest thing you want to do in this conversation is try to listen. So ask questions. You want to be the person that asks questions. What have you been working on? What are you planning? What's your resolution? What would you like to accomplish this year? What are some things that you're really focused on? What are some challenges you think are going to come up? Ask them questions and start to have a conversation with them doing most of the talking. And as they're talking, you're listening. So you're going to listen to this, and you're going to, as you're listening, very much be thinking, what could I do to help this person? Okay, so you're in this conversation, they're talking, they're telling you what's going on, you're thinking, what can I do to help? Now, don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. If something doesn't pop into your head right away, you don't have to force this. But if you have any advice, give it to them. If you have somebody you could introduce them to, do it. If you have a recommendation for a book or a podcast that they should listen to, give it to them. This is what I'm talking about when giving. I'm not saying you have to solve that problem that they have that they're explaining to you, but you have to give them some knowledge, some advice, some information that's going to be helpful to them, that they're going to value. And when you do that, they're going to say something like, wow, that was really awesome. What can I do for you? And you can say to them, hey, my resolution is to network and connect better. I'm looking for people who do X, Y, and Z, or who work at certain companies, or who do the same kind of business I do, or who are in the same business you're in, and I'd like to get to know more people. Give them as much information as you can so that you can be easy to help. Because if you give them a bunch of information, they may say something like, "Ooh, I don't really know anybody off the top of my head, but I'll think about it." Or they might tell you, "Hey, I've got this book you could read," or "I've got this podcast you should listen to," or "This is somebody who you should follow on LinkedIn." Great. Awesome. Take that advice and go and use it and try to grow your network. And so you do that. And, if by chance they say like, hey, here's somebody you should meet, or I'm going to introduce you to, then they're going to introduce you and it starts all over again. So the real step in this, the really critical part, the part that's going to make this work so that you can keep your resolution and become the better networker that you want to be, is the last step. And that's making this a habit. So I talked about making this small in terms of, if it's 5 minutes or 1 minute, whatever, the smallest amount you can possibly do. Find a way to do that smallest amount possible on a daily basis. Now, it may look a little different each day. One day you might be putting down a new person's name on your list. That's fine. That's great. You're keeping up the habit. The next day you might be sending one note to one person to say, how are you doing? And the next day you might be setting up a call, right? A video call with somebody. And the next day you might be having one of these conversations. And the next day you might be introducing somebody to somebody else or getting introduced. But parts of these process, the smallest pieces of these process, you want to try to do at least once a day. And again, if you can't do it once a day and you miss a day, no problem. Start the next day. If a few days have gone by, no problem. Start again. The key here is to continue to do this in a way that it becomes a habit in your life, becomes a part of your daily life, and then it becomes a part of who you are, becomes a part of your identity. And then you become that person who is considered a very strong networker or has a strong network. You're the person that people say, he's really connected. He knows a lot of people. Or she has a really strong network. It seems to help her all the time. That's what you want to get to, right? Again, when you said I wanted to be a better network, and we said, what was the why? To get a new job, to grow my business. Okay, great. And you're trying to build trust and you're trying to do all these things, like the reasons you wanted to do it. As you do these small steps, that will happen. People will start to trust you because you will be helping them. They will be helping you. You'll help each other. You have these conversations. You'll start trusting each other. And you will get to that place wherever it is. If it's a new job, you'll start to see those opportunities come. If it's a new business, you'll start to meet people who can help you with your business. If it's just to grow your network, you'll start having all these conversations, and these opportunities you never knew of are going to start to come your way. Now, maybe you're thinking to yourself, look, I don't need a new job. I don't have a business. I have a job. I'm working in a company. I'm on a team. I got a boss. How is this helpful for me? Well, it's always helpful to network in advance, but it's also helpful to network within your organization, because maybe you just want to get a promotion. Maybe you want to get a new role within your company. Maybe you want to understand more about what your company does because you feel like, I like my job, but I think there's more to it. I'd really like to become a person who knows more about this company. Then same thing. Who are people that you can reach out to that are maybe not your boss or people on your team? And who are people that maybe send you emails and they're in the from line and you respond to them and you just don't really know anything about them because they're just a name in an email? Could you set up time to say, hey, we send emails back and forth a lot. I don't really know a lot about what you do or kind of what your team does. Could we have 15 minutes on the calendar so we can talk about that? And ask them, hey, what is it you guys are focused on this year? What are your goals? What are you trying to do? And what can I do to help? And then same thing, they're going to say, what can I do to help you? And you say, hey, here's something that will really help me out a lot, or just tell me when this is happening. That kind of stuff. Build those relationships within your organization and then go from there and usually say, hey, who else should I talk to? Who else should I meet? And as you get introduced within your organization, people are going to start to know you. I've had people come back. I've told people to do this, and the people that have done this, that I've given this advice to, have gone on to develop relationships with people that created career opportunities for them in the future. And the other thing about those people who did this also felt like they really understood what was going on in the organization, because they started to meet the leaders and they started to get their points of view and they started to understand why the company was going the direction it was going. So they felt much more connected to the organization. So even if you're not trying to leave a job right now, or you're not like, I need to go find a new job, if you can connect within your organization, you're going to improve your career prospects. And if you're a leader and you teach your employees to do this, they're going to start solving problems with people on other teams on their own. They're going to start becoming much better at collaborating. They're going to be faster at making decisions. They're going to solve problems for you that you probably didn't even know you had, because they've developed these relationships. So if you're a leader and you've got people on your team that you feel like they are too siloed and they need to connect, then start sharing this information with them. Teach them how to network within the organization so that they can kind of go solve their problems and find the information without you directing them. And again, if you're a leader who's like, well, I don't want to do that, I don't want to be in charge of that. Well, then if people leave you, you deserve it. Because if you're going to micromanage people, the best leaders know how to teach their people to go out and solve problems for them so that they don't have to do it. And when you do that as a leader, man, your life gets awesome, because you get to move on to work on bigger projects because you're not dealing with managing your team, because your team is performing and solving all the problems on their own. And they're just coming back and saying, hey, I worked with this person in this department because I know them and we collaborated and we got the problem solved and here's how we solved it. And you're like, that's awesome. And people start looking at your team and be like, wow, that's a really high performing team. I wonder how Greg did that. And the secret that Greg has is he taught his team how to develop professional relationships intentionally, organically, in a sustainable way that became a habit within the organization. And if that's something that you're interested in for your team, let me know, because I'd be happy to show you how to do that. I've done that with my teams. I teach people how to do that. So if you are a leader or you're somebody in an organization that says, like, I would really love it if my team was self-sufficient and knew how to navigate the org and go out and solve problems for them without me, then let's talk, because I think I can help you out. So again, whether you're an individual who's networking for your own purposes to find a job, or you're a member of team in an organization, or you're a leader, Connecting with people all comes down to what I talked about before, and that's trust. And once you have that trust through intentional conversations that develop into relationships, professional relationships, so many opportunities open up. And that's what I hope happens for you in 2025. I'm focusing on that, finding those opportunities through those intentional conversations that lead to relationships, that lead to opportunities. And that's what I got going on. That's my resolution. Hopefully, if you don't have one, you can use mine. But if you've got questions, let me know. Reach out, send me an email, leave me a comment on the episode here or in the newsletter, and let me know how I can help you. That's what I'm here for. So until next time, have a great new year. I hope you have a great plan for your new year, and go out there, if nothing else, meet some interesting people. And remember, always be connecting.